people want to do a podcast, right? We know that. Like it's something appealing about it. But to actually do it, to keep it up over a period of time and to do it well instead of sort of like passively over virtual setup, immediately when somebody doesn't do what's the easy thing, like I gravitate towards that. It impresses me.
Same thing. Well, think about our industry though, right? Think about how slow moving the industry is.
Sure.
So like when you're out there producing content and you have a brand, which I firmly believe that's where everything is headed, as it should.
Yeah.
Right. Guys like me take notice, but I feel like we have a responsibility too, Spencer, to backfill ourselves, right? This isn't 2005 anymore, 2015 anymore, right? And it's funny when you work on the agency side, the consultant side, I always go back to like, if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got, right? And if you look at the demographics of our industry, it is an older aging industry. It really is. There's not as much youth getting into it. Like my story, I started in the industry when I was 21, and you guys have met I don't think you've met my father, but you have, right, Tyler? Yeah. So my father, I was cut from the cloth in a sense. Now he grew up dirt poor in Oklahoma, and he made a choice to change the family tree. That was his choice. So that's how he made his way here to Arkansas. And through going to Frito-Lay, or he worked for Frito-Lay, Frito wanted to promote him to Lake Charles, but my mother said, no, I want you to stay here. She didn't want to go to Lake Charles, Louisiana, because we come from a big family here in Central Arkansas. That's when he got the opportunity to go work for Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield. But at that time in the 80s, it was direct. There was no broker. There was no agent. Or if there was, it was very few. And it was about buying insurance. There was not what it is today, the level of complexity and the amount of resources you have to provide in order just to compete. That's where I came from. So when I was 19, 20, I said, hey, Dad, I want to get into sales. And I'll never forget him saying, he just chuckled. He said, I don't know if you have the skin, thick enough skin to get into it. And so my story, a lot of folks back their way in this industry, which I'm curious about yours here in a minute. My story is I walked straight through the front door and I went to go work in Nashville, Tennessee. And I worked as an enroller for a subsidiary of Blue Cross Tennessee. And we served 80% of the schools, city, county governments. But I always chuckle at myself because at 21, making $18,000 a year, I did have a company car. So I'm like, man, I made it.
Yeah.
The first year I made $42,000. So I said, oh my God, I put in this work and this is what the result is. I love this. But what I really learned as a 21-year-old, and I'm 41 now, so looking back 20 years, is that, I met with 20,000 people. And I say this all the time. So if I get a new producer in front of me or I get the opportunity to speak in our industry, this is the number one lesson that I've learned in 20 years. Everybody communicates, very few connect. And the reason why I say that is that when you're 21, attempting to figure out how to relate to somebody in 15 to 30 minutes face to face, which was the greatest thing ever, you better learn how to connect really quickly. I didn't have kids. I didn't have any debt. I didn't own a home. But I figured out a way to engage in my emotional intelligence and ask the right questions to where trust was built within 15 to 30 minutes. And what I also learned, working especially with city, county, and school district, employees, is that that's the heart of America. And benefits matter to them.
Yeah.
And I quickly found out that benefits were not boring. It was not insurance. And it's funny that, when anytime you ask, and I'd like to get your take on this, someone always asks me, hey, you're always in like maybe a situation, a social setting, Spencer, to where they say, hey, what do you do? And that's not what I like to ask. I always like to ask, like, hey, what business are you really in? And they kind of like look at you puzzled. I said, oh, what business are you really in? Why do you do what you do? And you can tell me all day you're a stockbroker or you're an insurance consultant, but I want to understand why. In those 4 to 5 years before I actually moved over to be a consultant on the broker side, because ACA got signed into law, I figured out really quickly why I do what I do and why I'm so dang passionate about it. And it's because what we do at the heart, Spencer and Tyler, is we are the chief architects for the heartbeat of an organization in our own way. Think about the level of impact that we have on a daily basis, whether it is from an organizational perspective, but that trickles down to that single mom or that family that this stuff matters. But so that's my story on how I walked into the industry. And anytime I have someone like you who I highly admire. I've been following you on LinkedIn. So when you message me, when you messaged me, and I know you met with Justin not too long ago and y'all had a good meeting.
Yeah, but I think I even messaged you before that.
You did.
Honestly, it was just, Tyler was asking that off camera, but it was like, hey, this guy's doing something different. I was telling you that at the start. It's like, you notice when somebody puts just a little bit more effort in than the norm. And to me, I connected with that because when I started the show, my own podcast in 2021, height of COVID sort of coming out of it, I recognize like people want to be in person. People want to be with other human beings physically. And I thought, well, what if I did a show in person, invited people in, and I put a little bit more effort into the production of the show? Because it's very easy to hop on a Zoom or Riverside and shoot a podcast. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with those platforms. Low barrier to entry. But to me, putting a little bit more effort in could immediately differentiate your show from the rest of the masses. And so that's what I did with my own show to start. And it clicked with people right away. Timing was perfect. But I think it was like, oh, he's shooting in a studio and there's cameras and they have better audio. There must be something.
How many
there.
messages do you get? Because I get a ton. Like, hey, man, how did you build the studio? Or, hey, I would love to come on your show. And I can't mention some of the folks that are messaging me, but some of the like, hey, this has happened. This has happened in my life. I would love to come on and talk about it, regularly. Even in our industry, right? Like, I would imagine you get flooded with requests.
Yeah, I mean, it's a multitude of things, of course. Some of them want to be on the show. I have people recommend, hey, you should talk to so-and-so. I think the ones that I like more than anything, Cole, are the ones where it's like, hey, man, I've been watching your videos for years and you helped me prepare for a job. Or I got into this job. I didn't know what I was doing. I needed to learn stop loss. I Googled stop loss. Your videos came up. And I binge watched it. And now I feel more prepared for my
think about
career.
Think about what you've done in an industry that is predominantly associated with being boring. Like, I'm being serious.
Yeah.
Like that's the age that we live in now. So like when I went to go build the studio, Spencer, number one, the reason why I built the studio was not because of the industry that we're in. I built the studio with Alex, and I don't want to say Alex, my producer, who's been instrumental in this. We built it as a time capsule because my mother is in the late phases of ovarian cancer, right? So like she's at that last chapter and I wanted to capture her story and those who might want to capture a conversation that they have forever.
Yep.
So I look at this as a time capsule. In addition to that, like I created it because I launched a personal brand to me. Now, anybody can consume it, but it's called the Resilience Playbook because I think it's the single greatest attribute that one needs throughout this life, right? You can't have courage without fear. You've got to be adaptable. Then you've got persistency, but then there's the resiliency factor because there's so many things that happen and we see it day to day in the industry that we work in. You see exactly how a client reacts in the moment when adversity hits, to how that trickles down to the employee. So that's why I built the studio. And then all of a sudden, it's just been more about, I'm just one of those guys, Spencer, that reverse engineers backwards always from a future state. Because to me, when you reverse engineer backwards from a future state, it grounds you in the present moment. I've never fully grasped when someone says, hey, you need to stay in the present. You need to stay in the present. Well, the only way I know how to do that is through the question of like, what is the relationship I want to have with myself in 24 months? What are the skills, the attributes, and the things that I want to be able to accomplish that put a smile on my face? That's where this all came to be. Just like what you did, you had to look down the road and say, hey, this is part of my servant heart by putting this out there, and the creative piece, which our world needs more of, especially in our industry.
But see, like I don't necessarily follow the same playbook as you in terms of like reverse engineering from a future state. I look at things and go, that's interesting. Or I think I want to do that. And have you ever read Malcolm Gladwell's Blink? Are you familiar with that book? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's where you make a split second decision and you don't really have all the information you necessarily need to evaluate it, but you go, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And I did it. And so I look at it where now people go, oh, you must have had some master plan to create this thing. And I go, no, I just wanted to do a podcast and I thought it would be a natural extension of the training videos I did where I could interview other people and they could be the expert. And I didn't have to be the expert for an hour and a half. And so that was a very basic idea. Like I said, I committed to doing it. I committed to a little bit extra effort and cost. Other than that, it's sort of been, I'm along for this ride just like everybody else. It is really staying sort of in the present and planning to do today or this week or the next week or whatever. beyond that, I haven't mastermind some elaborate plan
Wow.
of success.
What you're doing is impactful, and that's what matters most. There needs to be, more guys and gals like us, and my hope is that that's what we're able to provide to
Well,
the
I
industry.
encourage people to do it, man.
100%.
People ask all the time, should they do it? And I go, well, here's what it would look like, and here's what you probably should do to make sure you stay beyond where people normally quit, which is like 5 or 6 episodes in. And inevitably, unfortunately, most people, I give them all the information they need to start, and they don't actually start.
Yo, I know.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. I had the conversation with the client on Thursday night, and it was more a personal conversation than it was professional conversation. And it's called the threshold of control. This isn't anything I came up with. And the threshold of control basically says, hey, look, does the pain of staying the same outweigh the pain of exiting the comfort zone? Right? If it is, then just do it. Right? Like, I think where people get stuck is you can set a bar so low. And I ask this question to people all the time. Is it harder to start, or is it harder to stay with it? Right? You can set a bar low to where you trip over and create momentum. But when it comes to this, people get in their heads so easily, right? Like, they overthink it versus just being able just to execute. Just putting a little bit out there goes a long way. But look, let's back up just a little bit. Like, how did you get in the industry? I always love people's stories in our industry, because my question is always like, hey man, how'd you back into this industry?
Yeah. Well, I got a job out of necessity. So I graduated college 3 months prior to my wife, who had to finish school for the summer. Okay. So we knew we were going to be together. We weren't married at the time, but we were very serious. I met her in college up in Springfield, Missouri at Drury University.
Oh my God, I'm in Springfield all the time.
Yeah. So
Are you from Springfield?
No, she's from there. I went there to play soccer. I got recruited there to play soccer.
A good buddy of mine played basketball there.
Yeah.
When'd you go there?
2001 to 6, I think.
Did you ever run into a guy by the name of Matt Stell?
Oh, yeah. Everybody knew who he was. Yeah.
Baller, man.
He's a musician now, isn't he? Yeah, 100%. Definitely know who he is. Yeah, he was playing basketball at the time I was playing soccer.
Man. Yeah.
But anyway, so I knew I was graduating, leaving. I didn't want to stay in Missouri. She didn't want to either. Well, I'm like, well, I'll go back to Texas. I'll go find a job and then, hopefully get us a place and you'll come down. And she just goes, okay, if you do those things, I'll agree to it. So I moved back. I had to go live with my grandmother because my room had been taken over by my sister at the house. So I had nowhere to stay. So grandma let me come home. And for the summer, I did nothing but work out and look for a job. And lo and behold, 2 weeks before my wife was scheduled to come down, found a job with Liberty Mutual, being a claims adjuster. And all I knew about them was they were willing to take college kids with no experience but decent grades to teach them how to be a claims adjuster.
I've heard that they had like an incredible school, like for...
Yeah, I think I went like 10 days up to Boston or something.
Like for up-and-comers or that are new to the industry.
But they're just willing to train you. They don't necessarily, you don't need experience, but like, hey, you get decent grades, you look like you're a decent person, we'll teach you everything you need to know. And they did. But it took me about a year to realize I didn't want to argue with lawyers over slip and fall claims at Red Roof Inns, It was a really frustrating job. So I had a friend that worked at Benefit Mall. If you're familiar with that, his dad was running, I think, IT at the time, hooked me up with a job. And I started the process of getting into finance and benefits, spent 6 years at Benefit Mall. And I didn't get introduced to what you know me for today, which is stop loss and self-funding, till like almost 10 years in my career. I was like waffling, trying to figure out how this insurance thing could be interesting. And finally got a job selling stop loss insurance at Sun Life. And that's what changed. That was my first foray into sales, by the way. You went into sales at 21?
21.
I went into sales at 31. I didn't think I wanted to sell because I was scared of this idea of selling or convincing people.
Life is all sales.
Yeah,
though.
I know. Well, it took me a while to get comfortable because I thought sales was a used car salesman convincing you to buy something on the lot,
Isn't that crazy how the mind works and like the perception of sales?
Yeah.
And for me, like when I started at 21, now granted, the selling process was 15 to 30 minutes. And our whole goal that entire day was literally, if you hit $100 in monthly premium, you had a big day.
Okay.
$100 in monthly premium. If you hit 150, you hit 200, man, you're cranking because it just added up. What it taught me really though was the game of small ball, because out of 15, 20 people that I would see, like I said earlier, like you had to connect, right? And you push the sales piece out of the picture because trust is what inevitably people buy off of emotion. They don't buy off of logic from my experience. But the trust factor, as you probably experienced from a Sun Life perspective, that's the relational piece of it is really it's the fun part, and it's the equation.
Well, what I learned is if I understood the problem, I knew the solution was one considered best in class at the time, probably still is. Sun Life's a highly reputable company.
Very much so.
But I could trust
They're
that
a
if
key
I
partner
could,
of ours.
if I could source
so many.
the right opportunities, I knew Sun Life was a trusted brand. But more than anything, I understood if I was a technical expert in something that most people didn't understand, that gave me credibility. So for instance, rather than selling, I would go into an office and be like, I'll teach you stop loss. I'll whiteboard you stop loss and show you how it works and show you what's important. And by giving through freely with knowledge and my time, they associated me with a person that could answer the question. And by extension, the brand Sun Life would be they would be the first thought. And so just by helping them, teaching account managers and folks like that, the actual product itself, they go, hey, I want to work with you. And we're going to send you every opportunity we can by just being giving first more than anything.
There's a great book, series of books that are out there called The Go Giver. It's a Go Giver series. Very easy read. You said you just read it.
The Go Giver at least.
Yeah. There's a series of them out there in a story format, and it is undefeated. I don't care in what industry you might be in. If you focus on, number one, leaving people better than you find them, and then giving without expecting anything in return, which is the hardest thing for us as humans to do.
Yeah.
Then what you end up doing is creating so much goodwill in the mind and the heart of that person that naturally over time that the one word continues to come up. The one word that someone told me about you, Justin told me about you, he's like, man, he's genuine. I can feel it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I can feel it. And when people feel that it creates this energy that is like, hey, look, I trust this guy.
When you have a online presence, I think it would be natural to curate like a kind of a fake persona or the perfect version of yourself for the world. And I realized like in order to do that, you would have to keep that up all the time. You would have to basically pretend all the time. And so my thought process is if I bring myself on camera as the same person that's off camera, when somebody meets me, I get to just be myself and the expectation should match reality. I was joking with Tyler where some people will come up and tell me, oh, you're famous. That makes me a little uncomfortable because that's kind of weird.
That's so funny.
I disagree.
I said it to you when you walked in the door. It's like, my God, I'm
a guy
meeting
that
a
makes
rock
a
star.
stop loss podcast, right? Let's be very clear.
But isn't that, but that also has to make you feel good.
I appreciate that it's working, man. But I told you earlier, the things that really make me proud of what I do is when somebody randomly last week, somebody sent me a random message that said, I got this job because of you. And you started me down this path of my career. Thank you so much. I've never met that person. They might've been watching videos for years. That's how I measure the impact, not clicks or people coming up and wanting to take a picture
or impressions or anything of that nature. Well, and that's where my mind goes to. And we were talking about it earlier is like, man, I just remember 21-year young Cole, and you come across in our industry, and whether they're a producer on the agency side or they're getting in it on your side, you said it like, hey, I had to get a job out of necessity. It took me 10 years to honestly get to where I found my love for the industry. And that took you on a whole different trajectory, I would imagine. Well, 2 out of 10, and this statistic might not be 100% accurate, but if there are 10 producers that are hired
to make it,
20%, why do the other 8 not make it? Right? Like, I don't know. Like I haven't sat there and studied it to a science, but I just think about myself when I was 21, and then adaptation creates more growth in people's life, meaning like you have to force function. So when I was 27 and I said, you know what, I'm going to go for this consultant piece. And I was 26, 27, living in North Carolina, working for Blue Cross of North Carolina, a subsidiary. And I saw the writing on the wall with ACA. And I said, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it now. Right. And that's how I found myself on the agency side with Regents Insurance Group at the time. So, but that adaptation forced me to grow. It was a 5-year grind. I firmly believe it takes 4 to 5 years for someone to build their business because you're figuring so much out along the way, even if you have industry experience. So by putting myself out to the world, and I just do it through LinkedIn, I don't do much on Facebook or Instagram anymore, but it's just predominantly on LinkedIn. You get to see my personal and professional side of me. I don't hide anything. There are no masks here. My hope is that it inspires someone that is getting their start in our industry, right? Like you can always message me and I'm always going to respond, especially if you have the 3 attributes that I feel help someone be successful. That's humility. That's the hunger emotion, which is the most undefeated emotion out there. And if you're smart, I'm not just saying intellectually, but emotionally, socially, and you bring that team mindset to the table, you naturally over time are going to be able to carve your own path out in our industry. But I will say this too, the one thing I knew early on was my path. You don't see a heart surgeon doing brain surgery. You don't see a dentist doing heart surgery, meaning like your brand is associated with what you're really, really good at.
Right.
Same thing with me, right? You're going to get to see the 360 view of my life. But for those internally that know me, or even externally with my carrier partners, my goal in life is to be assimilated with being the best in the business at what I do, right? Like, and
well, that's what, so you see a lot of young people that like this idea of being an influencer. They like this idea of having a podcast or whatever, but I don't know if they've always cultivated a specific skill that's like transferable or that they can teach somebody else, right? And so what I always thought is if I specifically knew maybe a niche kind of subject that not a lot of people knew, but did have interest in, I could be associated with that thing and that expertise would always be valuable no matter what I did. Just like you, I built an identity, if you will, around that, but that's still the center of my universe is self-funding and stop-loss insurance, and it's what I get paid to do on a daily basis. And I don't think I'll ever abandon that core, but it was the timeliness in my life where you mentioned 41, I'm about to be 43. So like I built up a career, I built up a skill set that is transferable and translatable, but the podcast sort of just sits on top and adjacent to that. If I hadn't done that one thing first, I don't know if I would have been able to communicate what I know to the world or had a reason to even start a podcast in the first place. So it was like an order of operations that if you look backwards, you go, well, that makes sense to have done.
Have you seen your career since you started go like this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just from simple of
visibility. I mean, like
visibility recognition.
Shout out Pareto Health, my employer, right? I am here because they saw what I was doing online. They liked it. They thought that would be very good
on
for
them,
their
man.
brand. No, I mean, Andrew Kavanaugh and Kate Thurston were the ones that reached out to me. Kavanaugh's one of the co-founders. Kate's, our general legal counsel and was running marketing at the time. And she messaged me on LinkedIn and said, we like what you're doing. I mean, I think it's really cool. Would you ever consider doing it here? And it was like, okay, they recognize me for all the work I had done. That. And I would not be in the spot. I would not be working with Tyler right now had I not done all those things prior. I might have been a guy that knew stop loss or captives, but would I have been visible publicly so they were even aware of my existence? Probably not. So this is the arc, if you will, the hockey stick is I'm still on that ride right now and I don't know where it's going. But had I not done these videos randomly 5 years ago during the height of COVID, who knows like where I'd be sitting right now.
Are you having fun?
Yeah.
So am I, man. I have a blast. That's what I was at the lake this weekend for Labor Day weekend and was with an incredible family. But Sunday morning, the other dad and I were, we're up early, drinking a cup of coffee, just talking
as dads do. Yeah.
And the weather's phenomenal right now. And just watching, the sun come up, the wind, all the good things that are attributed to the fall. He's an investment banker, right? And he does well for himself, but he's like, man, I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel. And he goes, what about you? I said, man, I'm having a blast. I said, I don't know a lot of people that can say that. Like I've never been, don't get me wrong. We all have the ebbs and flows. I said, the biggest thing for me, and this is what the conversation was about, is like burnout's not a thing with me. Bored out is a thing with me.
Yeah.
If I get bored, it's not good. Like that's just the entrepreneurial side of me. It's like, hey, so that's kind of how this all came to be too. It's like that's like for me, the worst thing that can happen is me being bored or rusting out like an old vehicle in a pasture. It's like that scares the living daylights out of me.
Yeah.
Right. And it's good when you're able to get around people in our industry because proximity is power. And that's the other thing I tell anybody that comes to me for mentorship, for coaching, just for some advice,
Mhm.
is like, look, I said, first and foremost, there's 3 S's that you need to pay attention to. The first one, and I'm talking about your career. The first one is your state. It's like, what emotional state are you bringing to the equation? Because it's going to directly link into the second S, which is the story, the narrative. We're all walking stories at the end of the day. So if myself and you looked at this, it's like, oh my goodness, this is going to be a slugfest, right? Like this is going to be challenging, which it's not. Well, that's what it's going to naturally unfold to be. And then this episode is going to be not that great.
Mhm.
But instead, we have great energy. We feed off of one another. But a lot of people wake up every single day in our industry or any other industry for this matter and have their stories off. And then the third one is the strategy. And people always like to start with the strategy when they're starting off in their career or making a career change. I'm like, yo, like focus on the who. Like your greatest formula is the who is by far greater than the how. Find people that are further down the path than you. Like when I went from Regions Insurance Group to BB&T, McGriff, Siebels, Williams, the first call I made, Spencer, was, hey, who are the best of the best?
Mhm.
Not only are they the best of the best at what they do, but are they really, really good people? Like,
Yeah.
are they humble, hungry, smart? Because if they're not, I'm not going to waste my time. Like, they print more money, they don't print more time. And those are the things that I'm always constantly telling myself, because I would imagine when you started in 2021, your proximity grew.
Oh, yeah.
It would have to grow. And that's why I'm always an advocate of what we're doing for so many people.
What we kind of started the show off, and I don't know if we captured it or not, but you were talking about Benevibe and the idea of helping people take benefits with them, that portability component, right? I think when you create something like this, what you're doing, what I've done, that identity, brand, whatever you want to call it, that's portable no matter where you go.
I would agree
as
with
well,
you.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I would encourage young people to consider, right? Is like creating some sort of identity, one that's, I would say, authentically you, don't curate it and fake it, but that will always have a place, regardless perhaps of what the logo is on your business card. And so I think about the portability of what we're both doing. Hopefully that's for a very, very long time at our current companies. But if something were to change, you have something of value that another organization, or you build a company around it yourself as an entrepreneur, that will always be valuable.
Well, before we transition to a question that I have for you.
Oh,
all right.
okay.
And it'll be good. It'll be more in regards.
Tyler's saying, what if you come on here and Cole's going to take you down? He's going to be like some, like a complete takedown. I was like,
have you ever read the book Atlas Shrugged?
No, I have it. I have not read it.
The book. I know. It's my favorite book by Ayn Rand and The Fountainhead. And the reason why I say that is that our world, like guys like us and gals that have the same attributes in our industry, there needs to be a collective of disruptors, because I'm an optimist at heart, and there's 3 things that I always bring into any equation. The one thing I won't do is be excessively optimistic. I won't unexamine assumptions, and I won't ignore risk. And I just look down the road with where we're headed. Mm-hmm. And that's the question that I want to ask you. Is not I'm not here to take anybody down.
This is he was just like, that would be really good if he brought up
like a battle.
Well, yeah, the IRS in 2006, you skipped your taxes. Like I was like, oh
no. What I'm saying is like in what I'm relaying it back to Atlas Shrugged is that there has to be a group, there has to be a collective that says, you know what is happening is not okay. Yeah. Right. Like we can't continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. And that's what leads to my line of questioning, to transition to more of the technical side of what we do for our audience to really kind of take a deeper understanding. Everybody's trying to solve for healthcare.
Sure.
Right. Like everybody, I mean, I don't care who you are. You can go on LinkedIn. You got people railing against the insurance carriers. Yeah. You've got the flip side of that.
It's in vogue right now to attack the bukas. Right?
I mean, it's just like
it's kind of lowest hanging fruit, right?
I'm kind of tired of it, because in a way, look, carve out the carrier model, carve out the healthcare system. It's a two-way system. We can all agree, right? But my question really to you is, and we can go back and forth on this, is when you look down the path, 3 to 5, 7 years, what has to happen in order for things to change? And then I've got another question for you after you answer that one, as it relates to Pareto.
Well, I think I'm very keenly interested in like transformation of the market, or this
idea. That's what I'm talking about.
The idea of making a market. I think There's a Buckminster Fuller has this concept of you don't win by taking over the existing system and running it yourself. You build
That's what I was saying earlier.
You build
on
an
in the show.
adjacent model
Yep.
that attracts people to it because it's objectively better. So I'm keenly interested on what is the construct that is objectively better. I think we're going to see, Cole, to get a little technical, I think we're going to
I want to get a little technical.
The disruption of the carrier network model as it traditionally is understood, where who has the best discounts of the broadest carrier network. I think that's starting to erode in its value proposition right before our eyes. I think you're going to see the proliferation of real-time data of what's going on inside your body with wearables. There's this cool tech called RPPG scans, like which scans your face and tells you what's going on inside. I think we're on the cusp of democratizing like health information to individuals where it's in real time and it's live. And you'll need a doctor, you'll need a specialist, but you don't necessarily need them on a daily basis because the tech is going to enable you to know what's going on inside your body. And I think if you make people healthier, I think if you kind of dismantle the existing structure and you give people information in real time that's accurate, I think healthcare as we know it's going to be a completely different thing. That's my pie in the sky.
Well, no, and I would agree with you. And it's probably because I'm into all that.
Yeah.
Like I had a conversation last week with a fantastic consultant. He's a peer of mine in Dallas, and we were having the same. I'm on a mission to create this collective. So like, that's why I'm glad you're in the studio with me. And you go through an airport, like you guys flew, you flew here, you look around and it's sad. I'm not trying to be a jerk.
The general state of poor health. Absolutely.
It's just sad. People can't even put a bag in the overhead compartment. Right. And there's a funny episode long ago from Ellen to where she brings out the 7-Eleven cups and they just go like this. And I'm not saying that you have to be a Greek god or goddess by any stretch, but the greatest wealth you have is in your health. So my hope, my pie in the sky is with all the technology, it's great as long as it's put into action.
Sure.
Right. There's very few people. And I had Dr. Amy Beard on a couple of weeks ago, Alex and I did, and she was fantastic. Now she's in the functional medicine space. She she went from traditional care, ER physician to direct primary care. This was long before DPC became really more of a mainstream thing. Then got into functional medicine, and now she just is very specific in what she focuses on, right? And she has her own ideas and thoughts about the whole thing, right? All cash basis. But like my wife and I are going to Dallas to Cooper Clinic in January, and we take our health seriously. So that is my pie in the sky. My hope is that we can strategically use AI to leverage that. I mean, especially with our physicians who are spending so much time working in the business versus working with their patients, right? But to your point on the technical side, so on the carrier piece, the erosion of the networks.
Well, so just to kind of, in case somebody doesn't quite understand.
Clarify it just a little bit.
Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Aetna as the big four BUCA carriers. They all offer, as part of their product suite, a network. That network is supposed to have great discounts, right? But then you start to get into the real analysis of discounts off what? Some artificial billed charge that gets them to a number, and there's wide variance between carriers, same service, same location, same doctor. Each carrier is going to reimburse a different number. So we don't really have any accuracy on what the actual price is. People are starting to understand that. Then the network overlaps might be 96, 98, 99%. So is it really a network if everybody is in network in every one of the carrier networks? So at what point do we go, well, what am I actually getting of value out of this? And if you're locking me inside of a product that is designed to be easy and there's a cost of convenience, but I really don't know what's happening inside of my plan. I have no idea what it's going to cost me when I go to the doctor. All these things that are opaque. You're starting to get the general population questioning, what am I paying for? As it keeps going up in cost, but it keeps getting worse in actual like product value. There's a breaking point that I think we're at. And I know people have been saying this for decades, right? We're at a precipice of a collapse or something. But it just feels like everybody understands how poorly run health insurance is in the United States. And they're starting to question, why am I even paying for this? What else is out there instead? And I think you're seeing a lot more people starting to ask what else is out there and seek it out as a result.
So on that point, like let's just talk around the captive model, right? Which has in and of itself forced the traditional model to adapt and evolve, right?
Yep.
Answer this for me. what if someone comes to you from a devil's advocate perspective? And I know you've got the answer for this. Is like, well, are you just not recreating what they've already created and putting a different shine on it?
Sure. It's a good question. So I like the story of the Pareto Health name. That'll answer your question. So a lot of people think Pareto is 80-20 principle. That's what you think of when you think of the Pareto principle. The founders actually named it after Pareto optimality. So it's this idea that you can have not a perfect, because it's never in the real world, perfect allocation of resources, but it's an economic theory where you allocate resources in the most optimal way within a closed system so that everybody benefits. Okay.
I love that.
And so the reality is we live in the real world. You operate in the real world. You can have this theoretical utopian version of what you create, but it has to actually work. And so they looked at that existing construct and said, what are the things we like about it? What are the things that we dislike about it? And let's fix those. But then let's make it flexible enough where every employer can engineer their plan with their consultant to suit their needs and not force them down one singular path. I think one of the things that other captives will often do is say, hey, here's our set of products, take it or leave it. And that may work for a very small niche number of employers, but there's no flexibility in that. And it also presupposes that they've put together the perfect suite of products. But then you start unpacking and go, well, that doesn't have all the flexibility I want. Well, why did you pick that TPA over this one? Where is comp built in for you in that construct as well? And when you really start to dig into it, you go, well, you've just re-engineered what you're talking about, which is your version of the traditional system. They're trying to make this as flexible as possible. And for me, whether or not our captive is better than another captive, I just look at, well, what has the market said? And the scale that's been created at Pareto is exponential versus other captives, and we're more than 50% market share. So to me, the market is saying this is the best version of this particular construct that exists. And so I feel appreciative just to be a part of that. But I mean, if you want to do RBP, reference-based pricing, you want to get rid of your networks, you want to do tier one high-performance narrow networks, all the cool things, transparent PBMs, your independent TPA that does all the cool bells and whistles, all those things are possible to do in our program, and they're allowed to do and even encouraged to do.
So let's walk through, because I love these types of conversations, right? Because what we're doing at the core and at the heart, like I said earlier, why we do what we do is we're the chief architects of a heartbeat of an organization. And this is this is the first beat of the heart, in my personal opinion. So let's take our audience through, and benefits are boring until they're not. That's the thing that I say all the time. So like the technical piece is incredibly important to the overall equations. You don't see what goes on behind the scenes. We're going to give you a little look at what goes on behind the scenes between a consultant and someone like Pareto. You have a client. They are a fully insured contract and and I'll let you break all this down here in a minute. They're fully insured with one of the BUCAs, Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Aetna, and they're receiving, which a lot are right now, a
30%.
30 to 35% rate increase.
Yeah.
And they've got someone on the plan that is driving $1.5 million in RX spend through the medical on that side of the house. So immediately the employer, the client, the C-level suite, CEO, CFO, CHRO, all the C's say, we can't afford that. So, the broker consultant market, using the same bag of tricks, they try to go to the market, they try to move things around, and they might show level funded, they might show captive, but they might not be as comfortable talking about the captive. And then they're like, oh, wait, we're not going to take you down the self-funded path. We'll just say, for the sake of this conversation, that they have 300 to 400 employees. Okay. All right. And,
are you writing all this stuff down?
And yeah. And so the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what is the first question you are asking? Because I firmly believe around this case, I firmly believe the quality questions you ask will determine the quality results that are delivered. Like where you sit, what is the first question you're asking the consultant, and or if you have direct access to the client?
Yeah, I think if I were to have to whittle it down to one singular question is like, do you have interest in actually solving this, or do you want to just defer it for another 12 months?
It's a powerful question.
Yeah. Because ultimately, let's say that exact scenario you described, that person, we presume the $1.5 million of spend or whatever you suggested, we're assuming that's ongoing.
Yes.
Right.
So that's an ongoing
spend. That's an ongoing cost that does, let's say that drug is necessary. Maybe it's an orphan drug. It's solely for that particular disease state. They're going to have to take it. So it's a predictable cost item for the foreseeable future. Well, if they stay in a model like fully insured, where everything's given to them in the form of monthly premium, that carrier is providing administration, access, PBM, insurance, et cetera, that one claim is going to be used as a predicate for multiple years in a row of 35, 40% renewals. So they've effectively locked that particular drug in a black box inside the plan and said, here's the reason your costs are going up. But what they're not going to give you is a way to actually solve for that. They're going to point to it and say, that's the problem. Here's why, but they won't tell you what you can actually do about it. And I would actually argue in that fully insured incentive structure, when they're providing the pharmacy benefit management services, they're incentivized to keep that person on that drug so that the costs continue to go up, because then that gives them the pretense to raise the premium to stay in front of that. And so when you break apart a model, whether it's a captive or self-insurance, you might go with a PBM that says, you know what, we can source that drug internationally for a fraction of the cost. We can help them apply for a patient assistance program because financially they qualify for that. Maybe, since you said that drug is being done in a hospital setting, maybe we could simply do a home infusion instead, or a site of care redirect to get them to a less expensive location. There's about 6 levers ultimately that you can pull to try to solve for that particular use case. And then we'll say, let's solve that. Let's take that person and also put them over here, maybe with a laser if it was required, target that risk, solve for it. The rest of the risk pool might be clean, so let's price that appropriately. And if you solve for this, and they're driving 60, 70% of the cost, you now solve for that, that's gone, or at least mitigated. The rest of the risk pool is healthy. They move into self-insurance from a better baseline, and the future renewals are based on a lower baseline. And so you're trying to actually solve for what's driving the problems, not pretending they don't exist or pretending I'm helpless, if you will, to the system itself. And those are the ones that I really get excited about, because when you lead an employer down that path and they get it and the light bulb goes off, they get a little bit angry. Cole, we call it the damn it moment, which is like CFO, CEO, whoever pounds the table and says, damn it, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
There's no way I can keep doing this. When they reach that point, you show them the source of that pain, and then you also show them a path to solve for it. Like, that's when they really get it. They understand they're now in the business of healthcare. They all are, but they accept that they're in the business of healthcare, and they're going to now treat that line item like every other part of their business with a lot more scrutiny and intelligence than they've probably done in the past. And sometimes, man, I know this isn't always appropriate to say, but sometimes it also means the consultant might get changed.
No, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, because what's going to happen is you're going to start questioning, well, why have you been bringing me the same solution for years? And why have you been telling me that, hey, the best I could do was a 17% increase, but you never brought me anything else?
No creativity, no innovation.
Creativity, yeah.
Well, I tell people all the time, I tell our clients this, I tell prospective clients this too, is that there's 4 reasons that consultants win business, and they're the same 4 reasons that they lose business. And this can be used on the vendors. It can be used for any relationship.
Yeah.
The first reason is you're not prioritizing around the things that matter most to them. Most consultants want to fill in the blank for their clients without even having a conversation, without even having an opportunity to ask them the questions of where they want to go and how we're going to be able to help reverse engineer backwards from that. So the prioritization of the things that matter most to them are going to speak directly to the heart of what they are wanting to accomplish, and we're there to help them every step of the way. The second is the proactivity innovation piece of it. The minute that they go to a place, Spencer, saying, why was this not brought to me sooner? Why am I just now hearing about this? And it could be, and this happens, and this has happened to us, is like we've shown this time and time again, but a lot of our clients in today's world are so busy being busy that sometimes that the message isn't breaking through the noise.
Well, I say also, to be fair to consultants, it's impossible to stay apprised of everything that's going on in the market.
There's a point solution coming out every single day. I don't care, and that's something, but you can't also, though, Spencer, and this is where I see consultants trip, and we're perfectly flawed too on our own team. It's just that I am adamant about perfect effort and standards, right? And like when stuff happens, take extreme ownership. Don't go the excuse route. Excuses are lies. Even if it's on the client side, to where maybe that departments don't work very well together internally, communication is broken, and you have told them this story time and again, you've shown it, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, why is this now just coming up? You're going to have to be I believe in today's world, you're going to have to be a master of emotions, versus in the previous life, in the previous chapters, it was very transactional in a lot of ways, right? And then you get into the third piece is that it's the transparency game, right? Compensation's one thing, fees, commissions, credits, all the things that are into it. If they view that they're not getting a great value in return from their consultant, then you're fired. Like, it's just like, that's the whole value promise. If you go buy a Cadillac Escalade and you drive it for 14 hours and man, this is a nice car. It's an expensive car. But then all of a sudden you want to go back home and air conditioning goes out. Your perception of a Cadillac Escalade is not the same as when you bought it. Then you take it to the shop and it comes out and then it breaks down again. And this is less than 5,000 miles. It's a perceived value that we all have as consumers. And then the last but not least, and it's going back to what you were saying is, and it goes back to your question, which was a beautiful, powerful question, is we're looking to produce results. And we're looking to set the right expectation. I think that's what happens a ton. And it's very knee-jerk reaction, very impulsive when consultants want to say yes. Well, everything you say yes to, you're saying no to something probably more important. And not having that discipline really crushes people, right? And they get to a place, and I can say it because I am in this world. Like, you can be careful with it. A lot of consultants start out and they want to innovate. They're growing their business. They're scaling their business, but it comes to a place where they sustain and maintain. And that's where complacency creeps in and the dream starts to die. There's very, very few that are constantly in reinvention mode, And I feel like the market in so many ways is changing and shifting underneath our feet to where if you're in this to go create the same agency model and go flip it for 10 to 15x, right? Look, more power to you. But at the same time, you're going to have to start becoming more innovative and creative to be part of the solution and not the problem.
When I think part of where our solution comes in is our job is to tell you what is, and you may not like what is.
Tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear.
Exactly. Yeah, you get to a case where, I was talking about lasers earlier, but maybe there's, hey, we really want to do this captive thing, and now here's a laser that we weren't expecting. It is
what it is.
And it's going, well, here, our job is to assess what your risk is today, price it fairly, but also price it sustainably for the future. And we don't usher in a burning building into the captive. And so for you to go, okay, that is what is. Well, this is actually what's driving our costs. Now I know. I think it's ultimately up to them. Do they make the decision, do I want to try to finally solve it, or do I want to, put the head back in the sand and pretend it's not there and hope maybe somehow it fixes itself? But I think some people really appreciate, I think most people actually really appreciate open and honest conversations about what's actually happening.
That's the transparency discussion. If you look at the pyramid and the 5 dysfunctions of a team, the great book that's out there, the bottom part of the pyramid is trust, and trust is built on vulnerability. Vulnerability is built on transparency. I'm going to tell you, and this is another good example, and it's a client. So, this specific client is fully insured. It's a very large, fully insured program, and they're wanting to go self-funded, right? And if you look at it, fully insured is the most conservative approach if it's a fuel gauge, and then over here is reference-based pricing, and then right there in the middle is captive. Self-funded is on the more like, hey, you're taking ownership of your future side. And I looked directly at the CHRO. I said, hey, look, couple of questions. Number one, do you feel that your organization is operationally ready to do this? I'm not saying that you're not fiscally ready, because we'll get into that here in a minute, but are you operationally ready? Then his question was like, well, what do you mean? Well, it's like your benefits are siloed outside of HR. All right. HR, I'm starting to see turnover. So we got to address that. So is that team operationally ready in regards to when we make this move and we've got a path in which we're going to follow? Talk to me about that. Like, talk to me how they operate on a day-to-day basis, how the communication goes back and forth. Because if we don't have that, then this isn't going to work. You're going to be very upset at us, and then we've set an incorrect expectation. Secondly, the fiscal part. How fast do you pay your bills? And I said, cash flow is one thing, right? Profits theory, cash is fact. And that's the way I look at it. And he goes, well, okay. And he starts having a very open, transparent conversation around that. I said, until you can get to this level, right, you're not going to be able to make these leaps. This will force function you to get things right internally. Right? Because I can tell you all day long, because you're big enough. We've looked at the data, over the past 3+ years. I said, But what I can't solve for is your operational inefficiencies. And that's the things that we have to get
And
right.
what is your suggestion of what solves for that operational inefficiency? Is that a hire of a particular like benefits procurement
To me,
person, or
well, so
what would you
that's a
do?
great question. For me, everything rises and falls on leadership, right? Like leadership is influence. It's a mirror. Not saying that the CHRO jumps right in, or the president, or even the CEO for that matter, but sometimes they don't know what they don't know.
Mhm.
Like if they have direct reports reporting up to them, and they're asking us, and the board is asking us, like, why aren't we self-funded? And maybe that board member, he is a part of a 500 employee life group, and we're talking to a 14,000 life group. Maybe that group is in an industry of, let's just say, construction, and the group we're working on is a school. Totally different demographics,
Mhm.
totally different makeup, right? And so the first thing that I'm always going back to is working with the leadership team. That's the most important part, because that becomes a mirror for what their organization is going to represent. So before you go make a key hire, a benefits procurement person, which they already have, are we optimizing what we have internally right now?
Yeah.
Right. So kind of going back to the basics 101 is seek to understand, and then we can start to be understood. Right. So understanding where you truly are from an HR functionality aspect, because they're going to know. They're going to know based upon the turnover. They're going to know based upon how, efficiently their human capital management systems are working, how clean their data is. All that stuff matters, right? Because at the end of the day, the last thing you need as a consultant or as a partner is them rolling out a grenade for you to jump on.
Yeah.
And that goes back into the art of expectation settings, is kind of getting back to my Cadillac example.
So whether let's set aside whether or not that group's operationally ready for it. And I would argue the operational lift is typically a lot less than people perceive in their
Agreed.
minds. But we regularly do this projection where we start with a baseline of $2 million of premium today. We trend that forward 9% over the course of 10 years and show that the premium doubles in 10 years just by 9% increases, which are typically well received and palatable to most businesses. The real reason we show that type of projection is the cumulative spend, $2 million today, trended forward 9% for 10 years, is over $30 million. And so if you present that to a business owner and say, well, you've got a $30 million unfunded liability for healthcare in the next decade, they're usually not going to say, well, okay, well, which carrier should I go with? They'll go, well, how do I get that number as low as possible? And then how do I ensure that the quality of the benefits at least remain intact or improve? You start getting them to think about healthcare not in 12-month increments, but in longer increments. And then they start to realize, well, I can solve over a 3 or 5 year timeline for where I'm trying to go, rather than a knee-jerk reaction to a market that's breaking in front of my eyes. And if you position it slightly differently with they're fiscally ready today, and then you show them how obviously fiscally they are ready versus the inefficiencies of the
What if they can't even
path
pay their bills on time?
Well, if they can't pay their bills on time when they have a problem as a business, that's a different problem altogether.
And I'm not saying that they can't pay their bills
Was
on time.
healthcare a reason why they can't pay their bills on time?
No, so like I'm giving you an example, and this is just good for us and good for our audience to talk through this, because this is what goes on. Like these are the conversations that you have to happen. It's not that they can't pay their bills on time from a cash perspective. And I said it earlier, profits theory, cash is fact. That's what I care about. It's that they don't have they're operationally inefficient. They're lagging on paying bills, whether it's insurance premium or funding XYZ, right? So like that. So when you,
but if they're too far a laggard, they're at risk of having their policy terminated, whether it's a stop loss policy or a fully insured
100%.
policy.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of you've got inefficiencies in the sense of like they're always asking for exceptions. You see where I'm going with all that? So that's kind of what I'm getting into, is like in between the line stuff that you as a consultant have to really understand.
Well, the one
work
thing that
with a partner that comes up with an incredible question and says, hey guys, we're looking, and that's what typically I see. It's like people go to the strategy first. Stop. You're asking the wrong questions is typically what I find in our line of work in so many ways. But I'm just using that as just a good help.
Well, and I would also say, at least for a captive perspective, you want people to want to join for the right reasons and be willing to join for a longer period of time. Like you don't want this high level of attrition, because the captive in and itself doesn't thrive if you have a massive amount of turnover. And so we evaluate those things. I mean, let's say when you brought this to us, First conversation we have is education around what the captive is itself, trying to uncover what this group really fully needs. We might leave that conversation and Tyler goes, you know what? I don't think that's a right fit. I don't think we should even look at terms on this particular
Which
group.
is fantastic.
So we're screening just like you're screening.
Yeah, we're ruthless selectors.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
what we are.
because you have to be,
Yes.
right? Because if this was purely a numbers game and it was about volume, that might look good for a period of time. It might look good to a private equity's P&L, but ultimately the captive is predicated on it being sustainable for the next decade or 2 decades or whatever it may be. So you cannot have that short-term thinking. So we screen for mindset, mentality, appropriateness before we ever look at terms so that you're bringing the right groups to the table.
Well, and I would, again, on our side too, is like leadership matters.
It does.
It really, it matters. To me, it's the common denominator that's going to make this successful.
But I would say a group like that, whether or not a captive's the right fit, is going to be forced at some point, whether they like it or not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The forced function is like,
Yeah.
and then you have to have those conversations like, you're ready, but you need to do X, Y, and Z. It's not that big of a lift, but if you're having some issues over here, we have to solve for that so that when you do take off for vacation during the summer months or December and you're out of, you have some downtime, stuff continues to operate. Like it just has to operate. You're running a business. Like that's the thing. It's a microcosm. It's a business inside the business in and of itself. All right. So switching gears, this is a deeper question. What do you feel will put us out of business, and what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen?
I think technology is certainly a threat. Insofar as all technology is disruptive and there's a threat to the status quo, but then there's a replacement of the status quo with something better. I think what AI uniquely positions is there are a lot of functions, job functions that can be automated away completely.
What was the statistic? 55% of all knowledge-based workers will cease to exist.
The real question is,
or adapt to something totally
that's
different.
What I say. The real question
that's a better way to put it.
Is on the other side of that, are more jobs created as a result of that disruption, or are they permanently eliminated? And I think that's where the question remains. In terms
are you pro AI, indifferent about AI?
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
You hear all the fear mongering. I mean, I listen to the Rogan podcast. He's got somebody on every week talking about the risk to life for AI.
Yeah.
And I think
Elon's out there talking about robotics.
Yeah, I think it's real. But
robotics, nanotechnology, and AI, the next 5 years are about to transform like none other.
True.
Like none other. I'm not even talking about our industry. I'm talking about our world.
Oh, yeah. 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 When we start putting AI and robots that are walking around, the world is going to be a lot different than it is today. But I really think we just have to prepare for it. I think benefits is anything in benefits is really an intellectual business, right? It's all intellectual property. It's all contract. It's all communication. It's language. I think that is has a high potential for disruption. Especially if you start to question, well, what does my broker do? Well, my broker shops my insurance. There's plenty of technology that can go out there and shop insurance today. And how sophisticated will it be in the very near future? I mean, I advise on a company that's helping people expose fiduciary risk inside their plan using machine learning. And it's crazy how fast that stuff can be uncovered in a contract, whereas you used to pay a lawyer $10,000 for 2 weeks to go review your contracts. It can be done like that.
Well, and that's in the question I posed to my team, because I'm wanting them to work on the business, not in the business. And I'm pro AI. So when used strategically, like I think that we're in an interesting time, and it feels very similar, but yet different.
Yeah.
To 1999, because you've got billions and billions of dollars being pushed into the AI world. I mean, just look at what Meta did in the hiring of some key people and the amount of money that they're throwing at some of these brainiacs that build AI. But it feels also like there's a .com bubble.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah. And I could be wrong. But every day there's a new AI piece. And I'm on 3 or 4 newsletters. And do I think that it's going to help humanity scale? I do, if used correctly. What does it not have that we have? Emotion, heart is kind of eerily similar to it if you know how to use it and leverage it that way. But the one question I always ask my team is like, hey, when you come to me, I want you to ask instead, how can AI help me with this? Right? How can it be a strategic coach? How can it be a thought partner? How can it be, a partner to me to help me scale my own life and help my clients at the same time? Because that HR person, that CFO, right? Like they can look at it, and if they want to go to ChatGPT, Grok, or any other open source, right? They can, if they know how to prompt it and they know how to build it, you're going to start seeing in emails and text messages, whether it's through Copilot, Gemini, and all of the others that are integrated, to where you're getting pressed on as a consultant in a much faster time. Like I think time is getting compressed through AI.
Yep.
It's going to speed it up. And if you're not ahead of it, Spencer, then you're going to get left behind by consultants that are.
But there's two things.
I'm saying it on the consultant side.
Two positives that I think will result from a humanistic perspective is that more and more people are going to crave something like this, where you and I know we're sitting across from another human being.
I agree.
And the listeners know they're listening to two human beings talk. I think that's going to be infinitely valuable in the near future. The other thing is I think you'll see a proliferation of creativity as people are freed up to allow those
scale
things to automate, the task-based work to automate. The creativity should have room to roam and be free. And so you'll see probably even more of a creator economy as a result of AI as well.
That's what the gentleman that I was with this past weekend and his family and I were talking about is just, I'm fascinated with it. I'm reading everything I can. I've been for the past really 2.5 years, like entrenched in it and learning and how best to, because I look at it as, and I just say scale. You say creativity, right? Like Michelangelo had his David. We still talk about it today. It took 10 years to craft the David. And there's something very, very special about a mind like that. And that's what I see too. And that's what he and I were talking about. I said, I foresee, and again, I don't have a crystal ball. Rogan doesn't have a crystal ball. Elon doesn't even have a crystal ball. Maybe he does. I don't know. But I do see a renaissance period happening to where people, they're the only thing that when people get true freedom, it scares them because they don't know how to use it. Right. And
I'm a big believer in constraints.
Yeah. And then there's going
to have a certain amount of constraint. Like I found myself, if I have no actual constraints or limitations on what I need to do, then I'm going, what do I do? But if you give me, hey, what do you think about this? I could spend an hour thinking about that thing, right? I need a little bit of constraint to help me laser focus my attention. If you give me complete freedom, then I sort of like, I tread water and don't have as much of an impact. But then if you add too many constraints where you prevent somebody from having any creativity or freedom whatsoever, then they just feel stifled as a result. So I do think there's a balance that needs to be struck to really, like talking about David taking 10 years to sculpt, laser focus on one thing for 10 years.
Mindset.
Yeah. And so what did you get? One of the most indelible,
iconic,
beautiful pieces of art that humanity has ever created. That laser focus on one thing for a long period of time created that. And it was as a result of human hands. And I think there's something about the emotion and stuff that comes as a result of a human being painting or sculpting or writing, whatever it may be, that doesn't translate completely to a soulless, if you will, AI.
No,
and
I agree with you.
That's the disconnect for me where I go, I'm going to keep it a little bit at arm's length.
Well, and look, I'm a Christian, so I'm, for me, and I say that because at the end of the day, the soul matters.
Yeah.
Right? Like it does.
I wouldn't have brought it up.
Yeah. The soul matters. And that's why I asked you.
Yeah.
I mean, I asked you because I would imagine you've got underwriters, the coders of the world are definitely looking at this. And when the Salesforce owner, CEO, and everybody says, you know what, I want to be replaced by AI. And I think what he was attempting to say is like, look, I want to be able to work on bigger, more creative things, right? Like we're going to have to look at this and put some constraints around it in and of itself. Sure. I do believe in that.
Yeah, but I don't want to get to a world where it's like pure hedonistic pursuits of pleasure, right? Because if you don't earn your leisure, if you don't have to work to be able to relax or take that vacation, when everything's a permanent vacation, then I think people sort of miss the purpose that they have.
Something I tell my kids all the time, like, look, the earned philosophy is undefeated. Meaning like every time you go earn something, I look back in my life, suffering is a choice, struggle is inevitable. All the pain in my life from, all those inflection points, all those jumping off moments, the moments that required adaptation, which forced me to grow. I would not be the man I am today
Mhm.
with the values and the beliefs that I have if it wasn't for those moments in time.
Right.
So, all right. Well, as we wrap this up, I have one last question for you. It's a fun question. It's going to give people an insight into who you are
Okay.
at the core, but it's fun. It's fun. It's one that's been asked a ton. And let me just paint the picture. All right. So you're serving, you're in a third world country, you're on a mission trip. You get caught up and the police arrest you. All right. They arrest you, and it's because you have a cell phone. They think you're a spy.
Okay.
All right. So they arrest you. You have no clue why. Things start spinning up emotionally for you. And all of a sudden they put you in the back of the car and they blindfold you and they take you to the prison.
Okay.
All right. So you get into the prison and you know, there's one light bulb hanging. People are clanging their cups on the rails. And they said, okay. And they speak English, but they say, all right, Mr. Spencer, you get one phone call. That's it. We're not giving you two.
I knew where the question was going. And who would I call?
And who would you call?
My wife.
Okay. Do you know her number?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know her. I definitely know her cell phone number. Yeah.
The only reason I say that is when I ask that question to clients or anybody else.
Well, I'll tell you why, though.
Yeah, I want to know the why, because she definitely has the most agency.
My wife is a bulldog. Anything that she wants to get done, she will get it. And I guarantee she would be such a pest to that country, that embassy, that prison, that no matter what, she would make every phone call in the world to get me home. And so like that is one of the things I love about her, is because she is just dogged in the pursuit of what she wants. And I guarantee she would apply that same effort to get me out of that prison. So I'd call my wife.
Yeah, I would too. I'd call Ashley. What's your wife's name?
Courtney.
Courtney?
Yep.
So yeah, you call Courtney, I'll call Ashley. And when I was asked that question, I said the same thing. I said, Ashley she is consistently persistent. I know she is with me. And I know she's also extremely resourceful. And that's what the question's all about. It's fun too, because people start thinking, and I asked this last week to a client, and she sat there, she goes, you know, and she said a name, and I said, well, do you know their number? She goes, no. I said, no one knows numbers anymore outside of like a small circle of people, you know, like your wife, your parents, and, you know, maybe a few other people. I said, I remember getting the first cell phone, you had to remember everybody's number, right? Or when you were at home and someone called the landline and, you know, they asked you to come to the phone for the call. So it's one that's been asked a ton, but it really always also gets at the heart what matters most.
Yeah. Because I mean, other than my wife's number, I think I know my dad's number by heart, and that's about it.
Yeah,
but
same here.
I think if I had to pick the two, I think I know she just wouldn't rest until, you know, it was solved.
Well, man, this has been incredible. I can't thank you enough. I'm all about gratitude. I'm extremely grateful.
Yeah, this is fun, man.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful for your energy, man. I'm grateful for what you're doing. It's inspiring to me. I've been watching. I love being around, you know, people like yourself, man. Like I really, really do. So keep doing what you're doing. And if I can help in any way, please let me know. But where can everybody find you?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have selfundedwithspencer.com, but ultimately the podcast Self-Funded with Spencer is on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. I think the best place to connect, though, is LinkedIn. I'm always sort of active on there. If you send me a DM, I'll answer it, most likely. And so just Spencer Smith, and I have the acronym CSFS on the back of my name, too, if you're not sure which Spencer Smith it is. But that's usually the place I recommend to start, and then I can get you wherever you need to go after that.
And rock on.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate you.